Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Vintage Watches brought to you by the EWC. Today we'll be having a look at this vintage Swiss chronograph made by a brand called Starco, containing a Landeron 48 movement. In the mid-20th centuries we saw the market filled with Swiss brands making elegant chronographs. Starco is one of those now defunct Swiss brands. These vintage chronographs offer a unique charm in design and mechanism that is unreplicated in modern chronographs. This one in particular is from some time in the mid-20th century. It features a 37mm diameter, 46mm lug-to-lug, a 12mm thickness, and a 17mm lug width. The dial on this watch is particularly interesting. We have Starco, a black star, and 17 jewels printed in black text below the 12 o'clock position. Above the 6 o'clock position, we have the text anti-magnetic, and below the 6 o'clock position is the text Swiss made. The scales on this watch are my favorite component. It seems that there is a minute track printed in black, a tachymeter scale printed in blue, and also a telemeter scale printed in red. So there is quite a bit going on, and I think that really adds to the charm of this vintage piece. On the dial, we also have applied gold Arabics, 12, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11, as well as matching gold hands. Notice that there are two subdials here at the 9 o'clock and at the 3 o'clock that also chop off the numerals around it. You may be a fan of those subdials, but you may also not be a fan of chopped numerals. Personally, I don't mind it. I think it adds some charm to the watch. Those subdials indicate a running small seconds for the time and a 30-minute timer for the chronograph. Overall, we have a pretty nice white dial that has aged to almost a champagne color over the years. The case itself is gold-filled, and we can see that the lugs are particularly elegant given this decal style design. The pushers are pretty simple rectangular pushers, and we have a simple crown as well. Stainless steel case back, and a nice domed crystal as well. The best part of this watch, though, is the movement. The mechanism inside is a Landeron 48, which is a hand-wound caliber with no hacking. It has 17 jewels and an 18,000 beat per hour sweep. The Landeron 48 was one of the most successful chronograph movements ever produced. It was made between 1937 and 1970, so for a very, very long time. It was the successor to the Landeron 47, a historically significant movement for its role in World War II chronographs. This one in particular is actually one of the first chronograph movements to feature the two-pusher operation that we really take for granted nowadays. This one is a bit different from the chronograph movements you're probably used to on modern watches. The top pusher is to start the chronograph. As you can see with this vintage piece, it started a little bit to the back of the 12 o'clock position, so this one is probably in need of a service. We can see the running sweep on the main seconds hand here for the chronograph. Notice that the small seconds continues running for the time. This one right here, notice also that the hand is a little bit forward. So again, this one does need a service in order to reset the hands. In order to stop the chronograph, we actually use the bottom pusher and press it again to reset. And that's the operation of this Landeron 48 chronograph movement. Overall, this is a very elegant and charming vintage watch that certainly has the looks. But we must keep in mind the care required with vintage chronograph movements. As I've shown you just now, this movement isn't in perfect shape, so if you're looking to pick one of these up, either make sure that the operation is smooth and without too many errors, or be prepared to take on the servicing costs, and sometimes, depending on what movement you get, the nightmare of needing to source replacement parts. Here is the watch on wrist. I do really like this elegant look though, so if you're interested in such a vintage watch, then do have a look at this corner of the market.